Saw is a 2004 horror film that is directed by James Wan, and the plot is we meet these two characters, Dr. Gordon and Adam, who are locked, trapped, and chained in this basement. At first they don't know why they're there, who put them there, or what they have to do to get out, until they figure out that this Jigsaw killer has kidnapped them, and he leaves them both a tape that says if Dr. Gordon doesn't kill Adam by a certain time, he will kill his wife and daughter. Now, what I think of Saw is, I love this movie. I do. Saw has to be, without a doubt, one of my favorite horror films of all time. There's so much about this film that I love. Let's talk about Dr. Gordon and Adam, the two main characters, because Dr. Gordon, played by Cary Elwes, I like his character, the way how at the very beginning he's calm, because it's almost like he's come to terms with why he's trapped in this bathroom, especially because while Adam is freaking out, he tells him who this Jigsaw killer is, what he knows about him. But throughout the film, especially when he finds out that his wife and daughter are kidnapped, that's when he starts to break. And that's when he gets so emotional. By the end of the movie, he's screaming and just yelling and angry and carrying on. I love to see how his character just begins to lose it. But Adam, played by Leigh Whannell, Leigh Whannell isn't even really an actor, technically. He's a writer, because he wrote this movie. And I find that fascinating because not only do I like him as a writer, admire his writing, but the fact that he put himself in this film to act, which is surprising because he's actually pretty good. He's actually one of my favorite characters in any of the Saw movies. I love how his character, you can't really tell what the truth with him is. He's constantly lying, and eventually you find out that he was hired by somebody to follow Dr. Gordon around, take pictures of him. So the fact that these two characters are in this situation together is quite ironic. Now, let's talk about Jigsaw. Because Jigsaw, this is probably the most scary and at least evil, it seems, the way he's portrayed at the beginning of this film, that I've seen in these movies. Because at first you don't know why he's doing this. He seems like this crazy guy who's kidnapping people and killing them just for the hell of it, just because he can. But then over time you start to realize that he thinks he's doing good. He thinks he's taking these people who have done all of these messed up things, who need to see how valuable their life is. So he puts them through these traps or these life lessons, and if they survive, then they're worthy now of their life. And that way of thinking is so crazy, but you also got to at least admire his whole reasoning on how he doesn't himself want to kill people. I've heard some people say that this character is pretty much a ripoff of the Kevin Spacey character from Seven. And I resist saying ripoff, because, look, I'd much rather have a movie take an idea, be inspired by another film, and do something more with it. That's what I think Saw did. It took that idea, it took that character, and just went full force. And fuck, why not? I'd much rather that, being inspired, than to just remake something, reboot something, completely rip it off that way. Speaking of original, what they brought to this film, to this character, was, like I mentioned, the tapes and how creepy that is, but the Billy puppet that goes along with Jigsaw in the sense. You always see him at the videotapes of every trap, and I'm still trying to figure out how he rides that tricycle by himself and moves his mouth, but either way, it's insanely creepy. And the traps. Saw, especially its sequels as a whole, are known for their traps, because in the sequels they've gotten bigger and grander and more over the top. But this first film, I appreciate the traps so much because I feel like I can see this and I can believe that one guy has been doing this by himself, or that he's put together these traps by himself. Like the trap where he locks this guy in a basement and he basically has to crawl through barbed wire in order to get out of the door before it locks. Or possibly the most memorable scene in this film, this character Amanda, played by Shawnee Smith, who, between her acting and how great she is, which is funny because it's only maybe a 5 or 10 minute scene, but she puts everything into that scene. Her being locked in that chair with the reverse bear trap on her face. I love the way James Wan shot it too, because how the camera just spins around her and the score by Charlie Clouser is going nuts. It's so intense. Also, when she has to cut open the stomach of this guy in the room just to get the key. Just, I love that scene. Danny Glover as the detective of the film. It's awesome that they were able to get Danny Glover in this movie. He starts this movie almost being a dick to Dr. Gordon's character because he thinks he's involved with these kidnappings and murders. And then when he loses his partner, that's when he breaks, that's when he freaks, and he just becomes obsessed. He stays locked up in his apartment, and he's going crazy with articles all over the walls. He's talking to himself. I've never seen Danny Glover go this crazy. I want to talk about the ending, which, if you haven't seen this film, obviously spoiler alert, but it's like, how do you talk about Saw without talking about the ending? Because when you see Dr. Gordon, like I said, he's freaking out by this point. He's yelling. He takes one of the saws and starts to cut his foot off, which I always cringe at. Another thing is the lack of gore in this movie. There's not a whole lot of blood, but the way how they shoot it, the way how they leave it up to your imagination is almost worse than just when they show everything. And you find out that this character, Zepp, who you pretty much think is the one behind this whole time. No, it's not him. He's also the one who has a tape, who's being forced to do this. Although, a lot of moments, he seems like he's almost enjoying doing what he's doing. Like the scene where he kidnaps Gordon's daughter and has her and his wife kidnapped, tied up, and he's fucking with them with the gun. It's creepy as hell. But when you see that it's not him, and that it's Tobin Bell, who's been laying on the floor, the bathroom floor, pretending to be dead this whole time, that's a moment. The way how Adam looks over and the classic Saw theme is playing, and you see Tobin Bell get up, and everything is then shown to you, revealed to how we got to this point. It's still, to this day, one of my favorite movie endings. Not just horror, but movie endings of all time. So guys, I don't know what more I can say about Saw. It's, again, one of my favorite horror films of all time. I love virtually everything about it. Let me know in the comments below if you've seen Saw. What do you think of it? Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Later!